and welcome to the introduction to Blender's procedural bridge course. In this lesson we will go through individual steps of creating the setup, how our setup will look at the end of this course, and what features will it contain. Our setup is based on curve, so if I go to edit mode, you can see that there is a simple Bezier curve on which it's based. If I move, for example, this point, you can see that the curve changed its shape depending on the shape of the curve. Let's go through the all parameters which this setup will have at the end of this course. So first, there are overall settings of the bridge. You can set its material, width, height, and some other stuff. The most important here is the width and the height. So if I, for example, change width to 5, you can see that the width of the bridge changes to the 5, and we can also set, for example, height to 2, which elevates the whole bridge. Then there is this railing section, which in our setup means these parts here. So you can set their width and height, also enable and disable them. So for example, if I set width to 0.5, they changed their width to 0.5, and for example, height to 1. You can see that it's changing altogether. Next, our setup will also contain some bricks. So those are the black bricks here, which you can see along the railings and also around the holes. You can set all of these parameters of them. I won't go individually through them right now, but you can set their dimensions, gaps, rounding, and so on. The bridge can also have some holes, so you can enable them or disable them. And you can also pick which object you would like to use for creating holes inside our bridge. Next, there are settings for bricks around the holes, so those are basically the same as the settings for the bricks along the rails. And the last thing which is here are settings for the bricks themselves, so you can set their subdivision, bevel, and some displacement settings here. Now let's go through some basic ideas which we will use throughout this course. So the basic shape of this bridge is actually created just with simple profile, which is profile with this shape, and then it's swept along the base curve. So that's how we create this basic shape, and then we displace it a little bit so we get this nice rounded shape which is elevated in the middle. The next thing which is here are the holes inside the bridge. Those are just basically 5 cylinders, in this case 5 cylinders distributed along the base curve and then subtracted from the bridge mesh. And the last part here are the bricks, which will have separate lessons for them, and we will basically create a procedural way to generate these bricks along any curve you give to them, and then we will just give the setup these curves along the railings and also curves around the holes, and that will generate these nice bricks on our bridge.